Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Today we're going to be talking about Dewalt's new quiet hydraulic impact driver that just released. So let's get into that on Tinker with Tools. Now you may notice we are in a new shop space here. That's right, over the past month I've been a little MIA because we have been moving and I'm finally starting to get settled a little bit, but this shop is far from finished. The lighting in it is honestly quite bad. The sound quality is probably going to be a little bit off, and hopefully over the coming months I'm going to be able to make some improvements to the space that's going to make it better for filming, but also going to make it easier to make these videos. But I didn't want to wait any longer to make a video about this, which is Dewalt's new quiet hydraulic impact driver. It's model DCF 870, and we'll go ahead and tell you a little bit about it today, what makes it different from a traditional impact driver, what some of the benefits are, and then I want to do some performance testing so you can actually see it in action and understand what it's going to do. Now this is going to be far from a comprehensive comparison video against some of the other hydraulic impact drivers. That's going to be in the coming weeks, but for the most part I just want to give you my first impressions, having had this for a little over a week at this point and been able to use it to help kind of put this house together a little bit. Now what makes this different? In a traditional impact driver like this DCF 860, inside there's going to be a hammer striking an anvil rapidly, creating that rotational torque that you're going to be getting from an impact driver. With that, there's going to be considerable amounts of noise, often topping 100 decibels in a traditional impact driver. Now the big benefit that which you're going to be getting in a hydraulic impact driver is gone as that hammer and anvil mechanism, and instead there's going to be a hydraulic fluid system that is driving this impact driver. It's still going to create some rotational torque, and it's going to operate very similar to an impact driver and how it functions and kind of the feel of it, but it typically is going to be smoother and with considerably less noise. And so we're going to go ahead and test what the decibel levels are later in the testing so you can kind of understand that. But first I want to talk about some of the initial specs of this and maybe how it compares to what's already on the market. Now Dewalt didn't bring a new product category with this type of impact driver. They've existed before. Makita first introduced their oil impulse impact driver back in 2014. Hard to believe it's already been 10 years, but it has. And then you did have Milwaukee follow suit in 2016 with their Surge impact driver. And that one is probably the one that has been the most popular. In fact, they introduced both an M18 and later an M12 model, both of which I've owned, and both are really nice to use. But like I said, that M18 version is now going on 8 years, and so it's been a while since anybody introduced another one. We've even had other companies discontinue their line, like Ryobi and Rigid, that both offered kind of a similar style tool to these hydraulic impact drivers. But Dewalt has had the benefit of having seen how the other ones operate, having seen them tested over a number of years, and so what I was hoping for with this tool is that it would be a big improvement upon those previous generations. So let's go ahead and talk specs and kind of how they compare to that. First off, this is going to be Dewalt's second smallest impact driver in terms of length, falling only to that DCF 850, which is a very small compact impact driver. It's coming in at 4 inches. When you compare it to the hydraulic competition, Milwaukee is right now at 5 inches on their M18 model. I think the M12 is going to be a little bit lighter, but similar in length pretty much to that tool. And then with the Makita, it's all the way up at 5 3/8. And then I know that both the Ryobi and the Rigid, when they did have them, were also a little bit bigger impact drivers. So definitely a reduction in size when it comes to that. Weight is going to be very similar to what you're going to be seeing with an impact driver. In terms of speed modes, this one is actually only going to have 2 speed modes, which is kind of a departure from what I would say is more common or standard of having 3 speed modes at least. And then often impact drivers will have 4 speed modes if you include kind of that tech mode or whatever they're going to be calling it, kind of an assist mode. In speed 1, you're going to be getting 1100 RPMs, and in speed 2, you're going to be getting 3000 RPMs. That 3000 RPMs matches what we're seeing out of the Milwaukee, but when it comes to impacts per minute, this one's going to be at 4200 in its top speed, and the Milwaukee is actually at 4000. So it's going to have a little bit higher impact rate. RPMs are going to be very similar, but once again, an overall smaller tool. Now Dewalt has been known over the years for having kind of the tri-beam LED on their impact drivers with 3 single LEDs. With the 860, they actually introduced this new light, which is going to have the 3 sets of 3 LEDs, and it offers a pretty decent light. I wouldn't call it best in class, but you're certainly not going to complain about the amount of light that you're getting out of this impact driver. All right, so now I want to go ahead and do some initial testing. Now in this testing, we are going to be running the DCF 860 next to it. This is not done to suggest that this should be beating that impact driver, but more so just to provide a point of comparison. I will in a future video test it against all of Dewalt's impact drivers so you can kind of see where it settles in their lineup. But I think what you're going to be seeing is it's going to have performance on small to medium fasteners right around kind of those top impact drivers. It's just when you push it a little bit further that may see it struggle a little bit. So max on that one was 95.6 decibels. Now let's go ahead and do the traditional impact driver. All right, so the max on that one was 105.9. So we're talking about 10 decibels more for the traditional impact driver than what the quiet one is. All right, so you'll have seen those performance times on screen, but I'll give you my impressions of what I thought about it. There's some of those fasteners where it felt surprisingly similar in drive speed to that 860, and certainly not something you're going to be sitting there wishing it was faster as long as you're not pushing it into those higher fasteners. The more you push it, the more you're going to notice some vibration as it almost impacts a little bit harder when you get on a more stubborn fastener like that 5-inch ledger lock, for example. You do feel kind of more vibration down in the handle with that. Otherwise, it's a very smooth impact driver to use, and it is a lot quieter. As we showed in the decibel testing, I believe it was something like 10 decibels less than the traditional impact driver, and down at a level where I don't necessarily think you're going to be forced to wear hearing protection. When I was using it over the last week, I noticed there were times where I couldn't even really tell if it was impacting or if it was just spinning. That's kind of how quiet and subtle and smooth the impacting is on this, especially down in that speed 1 on smaller fasteners. It did just fine. Now it does have enough performance that I think you can drive, like I said, those medium fasteners as well, and I don't think it suffers too much. It's just if you're going to be pushing it on bigger stuff, switch over to the bigger impact driver. Now one thing we haven't talked about yet is price. This one actually comes in at $199 bare tool. It's actually spot on with what we saw the 860 when it got released bare tool. Now the Milwaukee Surge can be had for $169 right now bare tool, or I've seen it on promos occasionally for $129. You can also get it as part of their holiday promo where you buy 2 batteries and a charger for $199 and then you get it as a free tool. And if you use the battery hacks, then that obviously will kind of cut down on the price of it quite a bit. This is going to probably not be featured in promo pricing for a little bit, although you can sometimes use discount codes on sites like Acme Tools and get it for about 10% off. While that pricing seems a little bit elevated, keep in mind that Makita is still offering their oil impulse driver at $239 bare tool, even though it is a 10-year-old tool. And this comes in under that, and I guarantee it's going to beat it performance-wise. So while the price is a little bit elevated, they did at least offer a very competitive product, and I think one that bests the other ones on the market. Now, part of the reason why I was so excited for this release is simply so that there was a little more competition in this product segment. Obviously, with Makita's offering being 10 years old and no sign of it being updated anytime soon, Milwaukee has their Surge, and it certainly is a nice impact driver to use, but it also is getting a little bit older at 8 years for that M18 model. With Dewalt coming out with a new offering in this segment, I think it's more likely for us to see a Generation 2 from Milwaukee, and having competition in any product segment is going to lead to better tools for us, and I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is they now have a new top offering in this, I believe. Once we get the Milwaukee out, we'll test it, but I think you're going to see that this is going to be a step above what that Milwaukee Surge is, and if that's the case, pushing Milwaukee to come out with a Gen 2 just benefits all of us, whether you're Team Red or Team Yellow. All right, so there you have it. If you have any questions about this impact driver, go ahead and let me know. I think it's a good product, and I think there's a lot to like here, so we're going to be able to see it in future testing where it stacks up. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and stick around because there's going to be more testing for this. So until next time, I'll catch you on Tinker with Tools.